Welcome to Adding Fuel to the Hire, a podcast for hiring managers and job seekers across all types of dealerships. With over 20 years collective recruitment experience, Rowan, Tony and Phil draw upon their knowledge to help you navigate through the recruitment and job hunt process. For more information, head to our website, addingfueltothehire.com.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Adding Fuel to the Hire. I am your host today, Tony, and with me is Phil. How are you, Phil?
Good, Tony. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Today's topic, I should say, it's a one that we've, I suppose, spoken about in pieces here and there throughout different topics, but today we're just focusing on the interview process from a candidate's perspective.
Yeah.
And really honing in on a few tips and tricks to nailing that. But I suppose to start off, what's most important is understanding why getting this right from a candidate's perspective is so important. And I think the obvious one is the fact that most companies will hire purely based on how you present yourself in an interview.
Yeah, that's it. So, once you've passed that stage of, the initial review of your resume and, you've been invited into an interview, a lot of the time a company will do one interview with 5 maybe candidates or something like that, and then the decision's pretty much made. They might do a reference check after that just to double check and make sure.
Yep.
But generally speaking, the bulk of their decision, I would say probably 80%, will come just from that one interview.
Yeah, and I suppose regardless of whether their processes are such that it is just the interview that matters, what's going to matter regardless is the fact this is your first face-to-face impression.
Yep.
You might have spoken to him on the phone, but ultimately the face-to-face impression, as we all know, through all elements of life is most important. So
yeah,
you only really have that one shot at it.
Yeah, not even a Skype session or something like that
No.
can really. It's better than a phone call if you can't get there, obviously, but it doesn't replace that face-to-face interaction. There's all these subtleties, the way you carry yourself, the way you walk into the dealership or wherever it is you're interviewing. There's all these small little social subtleties that come through that you need to have a face-to-face to really get them across.
Yeah, and rightly or wrongly, I sit on the fence a little bit about using them solely as your single tool to hire someone, because I know from your perspective, studying psychology, you're very well aware of how the fact that it's probably the most stressful situation that you could be put into, particularly around the workplace.
Yeah.
Because often you're sitting there staring down the barrel of 3 people judging you.
Yep.
Very conscious of every word that comes out of your mouth. So there are people out there that are great employees that will just not perform well in an interview.
Yeah.
And so the amount of times we've put candidates up for an interview where you talk to them on the phone or over a video interview and they present themselves really, really well and you think they're an absolute cracker. And then the feedback from the client is that they just didn't perform at all. And then you talk to the candidate about it and they just, nerves got the best of me. I just capitulated.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're going to get nervous when they're dealing with a client. If they're a parts interpreter or service advisor being face-to-face, doesn't mean they're going to be nervous, but a lot of companies will employ based on that or not employ based on that experience regardless. So
that's right. Yeah. And you've got to remember this is probably, I think, one of, if not the only situation in life where you are for an hour straight just going to be judged by a room of people.
Yep.
That's it. It's like, imagine if you go on a first date, but it's with 3 people and they're all judging you and they all have to agree to go on a second date with you.
Yeah.
It's very tough. It's very emotionally draining.
Yeah.
And some people can get, they say one thing wrong and they go, oh no, that's it. I screwed it up.
Yeah. And they just will think about it for the whole interview.
Yeah. And then they can't concentrate.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, I think the face-to-face interview is the most important part, I think personally, in the selection process. I don't think it should be the only tool or your major tool, but I think it's probably the most important part in terms of getting a good feel beyond just skills and previous experience, but getting a really good feel for cultural fit and what's this person like to talk to, what are they like to sit across the desk with, those sort of things that you just can't get otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. And so I suppose from a candidate's perspective, the first and almost most important part of the interview process is the preparation.
Yep.
I think that's everything in life almost. If you're prepared, you perform a lot better.
Yeah.
But number one, the easiest thing you could possibly do is researching the commute from your house to the company.
Correct.
Or the location of the interview.
Yes.
There's a couple of different settings within Google Maps. When you search, you can search by actual time periods. So you want to make sure you are searching for that time period that you're interviewing for, so that it's running off historical data, because traffic might be different and fluctuate. So do your research, ensure that you arrive 10 minutes early, 15, 30 minutes early, whatever it is. Be in that car park well and truly before the interview starts.
Yeah.
Don't walk in 30 minutes early, because it can show, I suppose, a lack of patience and almost like you're trying to push them along.
Yeah, that's right.
But, if you have to sit in the car park or sit down the road for 30 minutes until, it's 10 minutes till go time, hop out your car, walk in and be 10 minutes ready. If you're on time, if your interview's for 9 o'clock or you arrive at 9 o'clock, I always say on time is late.
Yeah.
So,
you want to try and walk in there about 5 to 10 minutes before.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
It's I've heard a saying, I think 20 minutes is early, 10 minutes is on time, and on time is late.
Yeah.
And it's very true for interviews. So, do your
That's
research
right.
for the commute and make sure you've got that down pat.
As you said, even if it is, you've got to wait half an hour outside just because, you didn't know what traffic was going to be like, that's just what it is. Make sure you get that right, because rocking up late is just not what you want to do.
No, you're fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, that's it.
There.
Then, you're pretty much done.
Yeah, that's it. Researching the company. So you've researched the commute. Now it's important to research the company. So that can be as little or as detailed as you want it to be.
Yeah.
You can never have too much research, in my opinion, but get an understanding for their other locations, the company's history, the company's current and future plans. If they have a LinkedIn page and they're posting about it, understand what the DP's name is, who's the senior managers, just anything that you can then go into the interview and show that you've done your research.
Yeah.
From an employer's perspective, sitting across the table from someone that is showing that they've clearly researched shows that you're invested, you want to be here. It gives the impression, well, if they're going to give this much time and effort into an interview that they might not get the job, then, that must be the level of effort and care they're going to bring to their performance.
Their role,
job.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Like, what's the company's vision? There's all these different things. Just really go through that website, really have a look at how big the team is, all that sort of stuff, so you can get a good idea of what you're getting yourself into. Yeah,
and jumping on LinkedIn and looking at their company photos, what's their dress standard, that also plays into how you're going to dress for the interview.
Correct.
If all the photos on their website, they're all in suits and ties, well, okay, I'm probably going to go in a suit and tie. At the very least, I'm going to go with a jacket.
Yeah.
If their company... if their website has their staff all dressed in a company polo shirt, well, then I'm not going to go in rocking a jacket. I might just go in with a button-up shirt, a really nice polo shirt or something like that. So you're trying to match the standards.
Correct.
But obviously not all the time can you find that information out. So if in doubt, overdress.
Yes.
It's always easy to dress down.
Correct.
Throughout the process later on than it is to dress up. So
correct.
If you're not sure, jacket, shirt, don't necessarily have to wear a tie, I don't think, in this day and age.
Yeah.
Most companies will get away with just slacks, a shirt and a jacket.
Yeah.
But, if you are unsure, that would be the way to go, I think.
Yeah. And look, worst case scenario, just ask what the dress code is. Employers aren't getting, and I've said this before to employers, you're not finding out some miracle magic, psychological information by not telling the potential candidate what the dress code is.
Yeah.
Just ask, and they'll tell you. A lot of the time you'll obviously be dealing with maybe like an admin staff or something like that, or the HR manager. They'll usually be happy to give on the info. So just ask.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key thing. Just research. You really can't do too much research. Another good one I should have mentioned earlier, understanding, ag dealerships are a great example. There, might obviously be a John Deere dealer.
Yeah.
And that's very clear cut. But if you do your research, you might realize, well, they sell these particular implements or these sprayers. And you can really sell yourself in an interview if you drop that into conversation and make it organic. It says, well, they've been on our website, they've done their research. Everyone knows we're a John Deere dealer, but this guy knows that we do Krone sprayers or something. So, something really specific.
Yeah, that's right.
Will go a long, long way. and then formulating your questions around it so it is organic.
Yep.
Basically. But so yeah, you've done your research, you've rocked up on time, you're into the interview, and now we could talk for days, I think, about how to answer particular questions in an interview, and we'll talk about that in detail on another topic, another episode. So why don't we focus on the fact that interviewing is fast becoming a two-way street.
Yep.
So examples of questions that candidates should be asking throughout the interview process to show that they're engaged, they're listening, and they're genuinely interested in the role. So give us some examples. Do you have anything that comes to mind that you've kind of picked up through your years of experience doing this?
Yeah, so a good one is I always find is ask them for what their expectations are for this role in the next in the first 30 days, 60 days, next 6 months, a year, whatever it is. That gives you a good indication of, all right, so this is probably what the role's realistically going to look like.
Yep.
The other thing it's going to do is show the employer, oh, right, they have genuinely really thought about, if they were to get this role, what would it look like?
Yeah.
What would I be doing? So they've, clearly, obviously, there's a higher level of thought process that's gone into this to figure out, is this role going to be for me? So I think that's always a really, really good question. Plus, it forces the employer to put some benchmarks around what they actually want.
Yep.
Maybe they haven't actually thought about that.
Yeah.
And so they think, oh, that's actually a good question because we've got to figure that out. So I think that's a really good one. Another good one is what they think the most important qualities for someone are to excel in this role. Is it someone who is great with people? Is it someone who's great with numbers? Is it someone who's really good in a fast-paced environment? Is it someone who's happy to be quite heavily managed because that's how the team's working at the moment?
Yeah.
So I think those sort of questions are good ones to ask because they show you've thought about the role, you've put yourself into this role in your mind and thought, right, this is sort of something I'd want to know more about. And it also gives the employer a chance to go deeper into the role in terms of, things they probably wouldn't have thought of telling the candidate otherwise.
Yeah, and it gives you the opportunity to sell yourself. If you ask what are the most important qualities for someone to excel in this role and they tell you, well, then now that's open to you. It's over to you now to tell them why you fit those qualities. Yeah. And sell yourself. Obviously doing it in an organic way so it doesn't feel very, I suppose, robotic almost, that you're just trying to tick a box.
Yeah.
But it does open that up for you. And then two other questions that go hand in hand that do the same thing perfectly is asking what are the biggest challenges facing the company or the department right now? So if you're a parts manager, this works really well as in a management role. So if you walk in, I'm going for a parts manager's role, all right, what's the biggest challenges in your opinion for this department? And they'll lay out, well, we've got a lot of dead stock that we need moved ASAP.
Yeah.
Great. Now, as the candidate, I can say, well, I've had this experience doing this, 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 and this. So you've just ticked that huge box for them because they're worried as this is the biggest challenge, and now you've just answered that question.
Correct.
You're not walking away, or they're not walking away unknown as to whether or not you can perform their biggest challenge. And then that leads in perfectly to saying, what are the biggest opportunities facing the company or the department right now? So, we might be bringing on a new brand. Oh, great. I've got that brand experience.
Yeah.
It just opens up that conversation. It gives you so many tools to sell yourself by asking these questions and opening it up. Otherwise, you just sit there and you're just getting smashed with question after question after question for an hour. It can feel very one way.
Yeah.
You're not getting any control of the process.
Yeah.
And so you'll leave and often, because it's not a two-way street, the result is dictated almost by the questions that they've asked you.
Yeah.
By you getting on the front foot and asking questions and the right questions and kind of moving that conversation, you can take control of some of the process and almost control your own destiny in a way.
Yeah.
But I think the other and final most important question to ask, and that's really just when you're leaving the interview, is what is the next step of the process from
that's
here?
That's right. Yeah.
Is it going to be do you have 10 other people to interview? Am I going to wait a month or am I going to find out in 3 days' time?
Yeah.
Because that allows you to know how you're going to follow up from here on out. And we'll talk about that at the end. But, it really allows you to get an understanding of what's going to happen from here.
Yeah, that's right. It allows you to set your expectations in terms of what's going to happen from here. And, if you get told, oh, we've got to interview another 8 candidates, and it's going to take us another week to get through those before we can evaluate them all. Well, then you're not going to be worried if you've not heard from them in 3 days. So it's just setting expectations for yourself, so you know what's the deal from here.
Yeah, and one question that we didn't bring up when we were just talking about an example of questions then. And probably because it does deserve its own little subtopic, it's why we've left it here.
Yeah.
But probably the most important question to ask is something along the lines of, does the company have an expectation of what salary will be offered to the successful applicant?
That's right.
And that leads us into discussing salary expectations.
Yeah.
So you should never, and this is whether you're a candidate or an employer, you should never walk away from an interview having not discussed this.
Correct.
For so many reasons. An obvious one is the fact you could be $40,000 apart, and it will never match up. And if you leave it right to the end, to the offer, think how much time and effort you're wasting going down that path.
Yeah.
And only to find out that it was just never going to work from the start.
Correct. And they might still take it anyway because you've both come sort of halfway and you've met each other. You've met each other halfway, sort of thing. But then as the employer, you're going, oh, well, we've paid them so much more than what we wanted to. And as the candidate, you're going, oh, well, they've paid me so much less than what I really wanted to. And it doesn't work out in the end. They might stay for a few weeks, few months or whatever, but they'll leave.
Yeah, not happy
with it
anyway. So I suppose that question, and I'll repeat it again for anyone listening, because it is a really difficult one to figure out how to word it properly. Because it can be such a delicate topic.
Yeah.
But I suppose the wording that we've found to be probably the most successful is, does the company have an expectation of what salary will be offered to the successful applicant? That's not saying, I deserve this, I'm worth that. But it gets on the front foot and it makes them give you a ballpark. Because often if you don't, what you'll end up getting is the employer saying, we're going to offer this for the role, and not really giving you a say in it. And then it pigeonholes you into a corner almost. So you want to get on the front foot and ask that. But it is really important not to ask it through what we call the courtship phase.
Yes.
So that might be, the first half an hour of an interview. It might be the first initial phone call.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you've built rapport first, and you're getting along on a personal level before you ask that question. Otherwise, it will come across, if you ask it right at the start, comes across as, well, all they care about is the salary. And even if they take the job, they're going to just keep looking for higher salary.
Yeah.
And just leave eventually.
Yeah, you don't want to lead with it.
No, it's like going on a date, as you said. You're going to warm them up to it and then lead with it later on once the courtship phase is over. So I suppose we've done the interview, and this is probably the toughest part to give advice on because it is, I suppose, very varied.
Very situation specific.
Yeah, it's how to follow up after an interview. So why don't you lead off? What are the options? What are the scenarios, and how does it look?
Yeah, so a good one to always do is to just send a thank you email to the people you interviewed with. So try and get a business card or something out of them. Sometimes they'll just give you a business card straight away. A lot of companies do that. So just sending them an email probably the next day and just say, look, I just wanted to say thanks for your time. Regardless of, where the decision goes from here, I really enjoyed meeting you, and it was great to learn more about the company. If there's anything else you need from me, please let me know. Just something short like that. It doesn't need to be very long. Just to sort of let them know, look, I am thankful and I'm grateful for the opportunity, even if it doesn't work out.
It shows them that you're still interested as well. Like, you've gone to the interview. Oh, cool. Yep, they're still interested.
That's
Definitely
right.
want to consider this person.
That's right. Yeah. So, because on their side, they're thinking as well, do you think he liked us?
Yeah.
Like, do you think this person would be keen to work for us? So just sending that email just shows that you've got that interest there.
Yep.
So I think that's a really good one to do. If they tell you, look, we've got another 7 people to interview and they're all booked in over the next 7 days, don't follow up after 3 days saying, hey, what's the go?
Yeah.
Because they've told you that's not,
Yep.
nothing's happening until we've interviewed everyone. If they say, look, we'll get back to you within 2 days and you haven't heard from them after 4 or 5, I think it's definitely worth just sending them an email and just saying, hey, I just wanted to follow up, see if, the process was moving along at all. If there's any more info you need from me, please let me know. Something very, very soft, just to check in essentially.
And offering that extra information is a good way to do it.
That's right. Always offer something in return, you know, say, I'm happy to help as well if there's anything I can do. So it's
references or
So it's not just, hey, when are you giving me a job? Like, when are you doing something for me? You know, again, it's a two-way street, try and offer something there as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really tough and sensitive thing. I know is such a fine line between looking disinterested and not following up at all versus looking way too keen and desperate and following up too much. So it really is important, and that's why we harped on about it before, is you need to understand or get out of them at the interview phase what the next step of the process is from here, because without knowing that, you really don't know how to follow up properly in their eyes.
That's right.
That's the important one. But they're the kind of key points we wanted to discuss today. There's so much more, obviously, throughout the interview process. We'll cover off on a couple more episodes, but we've actually do have a webinar that we've already filmed based on this topic around here, providing tips for candidates through the interview process. So if you do want a copy of that, it does have a little bit more extra detail in it. Please send us an email. Details will be below in the show notes. But if there's any extra information you want, let us know. We can get that across to you. Otherwise, contact us for some tips and advice for further episodes, and we'll definitely jump on and record them. But otherwise, thank you for listening. We'll be back again next week.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Adding Fuel to the Hire. If you have any questions or you'd like to hear us talk about a particular topic, why not send us an email at podcast@addingfueltothehire.com. If you like what we do and would like to support our podcast, please leave a review on your podcasting app of choice. For further information, please visit our website, addingfueltothehire.com.